So it appears as though the real estate market is plotting its revenge. Why are investors and landlords now all of a sudden losing so much money? And answering questions, hopefully by the end of this video, as to when will rent prices come down. Now, Michelle, SquirrelTribe, is going to join me now that she is no longer in her phone, as she was reviewing some of the comments from other videos that we've uploaded. And more than likely videos you haven't seen, because YouTube's just not showing them to people. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't know. There's some crazy stuff happening. New updates have come out about some changes that are going to be going down with YouTube. We're going to continue to work through it. And I think the best part about it is, for those who are interested in learning how to build and grow and improve their channels, then this is exactly where you're going to want to be. Actually, really more so, you're going to want to be over on Patreon, because I'm actually putting together videos specifically for this very reason, because I do think that it's still a great time to start making content. It's still a great time to start making YouTube channels. What kind of channel is this? Do you know?
Your channel?
Oh, there you go. There's the answer. My channel. It's my channel. Now, however, YouTube may decide to categorize my channel, which it is continuously evolving every single day, and I can see it on the back end in analytics, is YouTube's choice. But at the end of the day, it's my channel. And based on the analytic data that we have available to us on this channel and multiple others, you kind of got to remember that. I met someone at Vid Summit last year who had probably 400,000 subscribers at the time, now has over 1 million. And when I asked him what his audience data was on his channel, he goes, I don't know and I don't care. He continuously makes content. He even stated last year his mission was to improve the content that he created. And when I think about some of the biggest and best channels that I like, it's just that. Their channel, they create what they want, when they want. And that's pretty much it. With that being said, some of what they create does really well. Some of it kind of underperforms, but at the end of the day, they're going to do what they want to do. And I think that's way more important than trying to chase what you think everyone else wants you to do, or what the algorithm may want you to believe.
I mean, it's the same thing as if you have a 9-to-5 job. Wouldn't you rather have one at a place where you feel fulfilled at the end of the day, and you're happy at the end of the day, and you enjoy being there while you're there, versus one where the second you wake up, your first thought is, crap, I got to do this again. Like, so to me, making what you want to make and what makes you happy is more important than making what the algorithm wants everybody doing.
Well, absolutely, especially when you go down that road and that path, only to then be underserved, lose subscribers, get less views, see a lower impression total, reduced click-through rate, possibly even negative comments, hateful comments, and a reduction in revenue, only to say, I didn't enjoy what I was making and YouTube didn't serve it. So what's the point?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are coming to this realization as they are continuously signing up and joining us over on Patreon, where we have these real conversations and discussions that apparently are welcome on YouTube. It's just that YouTube's not showing them to everybody yet. And for those who choose to voice their opinions that don't align with my channel's goals, well, ultimately you get silenced. You get deleted, blocked, hidden, and we will never hear from you. And I think it's for the greater good. As we tested and have proven yesterday with what we have done, we can kind of steer the ship. And if you allow it to be steered in a direction that you don't want it to go from the start, then you're destined to go down a path that you don't want to be on. But instead, if you can help people along, it works out better. And I think that's going to be really, really good moving forward, especially with what is happening to people's money, their finances, their jobs, their living situations, as we are entering into the beginning of quite possibly the most extreme instance of this insane cost of living crisis, where we should expect to see rent prices fall, but it won't make things any more affordable. How is that possible? Well, let's figure that out. More importantly, this video is for people who are living in Florida or people who may be thinking about leaving Florida. Why are you leaving Florida? Why are people leaving Florida?
Well, technically, then it also pertains to people who are thinking of moving to Florida.
Exactly. Or any state for that matter. As I said in a previous video, that what we are experiencing here isn't isolated only to Florida.
Correct.
So if you're living in Florida or anywhere for that matter, or considering moving to
If
Florida
you're on the earth.
or leaving Florida or any state, then this video is for you. But more importantly, if you feel as though you are being beaten down by the insanely high cost of living, then you're going to want to stick around until the end so that you can find out how to fight back against the rising cost of living and beat this game and play to win.
I'm not trying to mess with you. You got a little fuzz in your beard.
You got to know that this is a game, folks. They're playing. Are you playing?
Is it chess or checkers? That's the problem. They're playing chess, and a lot of people are trying to play checkers.
A lot of people don't even know how to play.
That's true.
Meanwhile, the real estate market is plotting its revenge. Why are investors and landlords losing money? When will rent prices actually come down? This is not a news channel. At least, not really. We're going to talk about some things that are happening that may potentially happen to be news, but you can get a regurgitation of the news on any other channel. Quite possibly, you've already gotten it from someone else's video that said, oh no, this is bad. Danger. Stock up now. Go buy some chickens. Good luck with that. We are seeing liquidation of single family homes by investors, although they're not distressed sales, which the distressed sales are possibly on the horizon, but there are institutional investors out there who are choosing to unload a large percentage of their portfolio by choice, not by force. More importantly, this is a liquidation in single family housing, single family real estate investments. All the properties that you wanted to live in or purchase or potentially go submit offers on and go under contract, but were beaten out by all cash offers from, seemingly endless supplies of money, that we're going to be using these properties for rent only.
Can I make coffee while we do this?
Make coffee?
Yes.
Big problems in real estate. Big problems in real estate as we wait for the coffee to be brewed here. It's 1:50. I felt like it was later than that.
It's because we're an hour off from what we've done the last week. Technically, it would have been 2:50 where we were, and everything's a little...
I thought it was later than that. I feel like we've done a lot today so far. You've actually
woke up early.
recorded a video, and also I was trying to get this done, and then theoretically by 4, be out of here. The beauty of it is I don't think we're gonna have to edit this video. So as soon as we're done, we'll upload it. We'll be good to go. But big problems in real estate. 2021 real estate investments and purchases saw rent prices just going up and up. And that pissed a lot of people off.
Yeah.
For good reason.
Except for the ones who were selling or renting out.
The landlords,
Yeah.
yeah. But those who wanted to rent, they were upset. This insane cost of living and struggling to, well, some people, they may argue this, but I think for the most part, there was still a large percentage of population that were struggling to get by, living paycheck to paycheck, despite however many stimulus checks that some people may have gotten or others didn't. So you can't look at the situation like, well, you got free money. Not everybody got free money.
Yeah. I know this is interrupting, but I just thought of it and I never thought to ask it. People who are on Social Security and aren't allowed to make more than a certain amount per month, were they allowed to get
Not
the
Social
stimulus?
Security.
No, not Social Security.
Yeah.
But
That's just, I don't know. That's a good question.
Were
That's
they
a good
allowed
question.
to get stimulus checks? Because then that would have technically put them over the earning threshold that they could be at.
Yeah, maybe. But, it would have to have probably been on a reoccurring basis.
Okay, that makes sense.
Maybe.
Okay.
But if anybody knows for sure, for certain, feel free to comment. Meanwhile, the unemployment boost that, Mitch McConnell blamed for people not wanting to go to work anymore. Honestly, those benefits dried up very quickly. So they didn't necessarily help with the offset the higher increase in rent prices, especially with those who had poor money management, no budgets, high levels of pre-existing debt, and inflation and temptation. So the inflation, we helped that along, but the temptation, we can kind of control that, sort of. Granted, there are clever marketing strategies and techniques out there, but at the end of the day, you have to realize businesses knew that money was being poured into the economy to people who never had that money before. So their job was to do their best to tempt you to immediately spend that money as soon as you got it on things that were not going to be conducive to you improving your lifestyle, reducing your rent, putting you on the path to home ownership, or getting out of debt.
It was meant to go out and buy that new big screen TV, go get some new sneakers, go buy a new car, go get a basketball hoop. Like, it was literally the commercials you started seeing were for all the prices of, look at this great price on these TVs at Walmart. Look at the stuff we got at Best Buy. Make sure you check out Ford and the new whatever, the Lightning, and all those other things.
Amazon pumping up their, distribution network chain. And I got to be honest with you guys. I was on the back end of a lot of channels during that time and seeing their analytics and wondering, why would advertisers pay so much to advertise on these videos? And my answer was, they're advertising to the people that don't know any better.
That don't know how to save the money, and
they're advertising to the people waiting for a check to show up, to already have built into their brain where they're going to spend it.
Yeah.
Peloton probably hoped that they would fall into that category, but they didn't get that money in time.
They pushed so hard. Every time you turned on the TV or YouTube or anything, it was a Peloton commercial, until Peloton was a bad thing to have.
It's not a bad thing to have, but Peloton struggled.
Yes.
Peloton struggled, along with a lot of other companies out there, Carvana being one of them. I mentioned them on the video yesterday. But 2020 and 2021 saw a shortage of available homes for rent, and buyers and renters were facing strong opposition and competition and were forced to pay substantially more than the asking or list prices, while renters needed to be over qualified.
We could actually talk about that.
Well, the over qualified was, high rent prices on top of excellent credit scores and at least 3 times the monthly rent and monthly income.
Now, I was thinking about when we sold our house in Georgia. At first it was, well, do we sell it or do we put it up for rent? That way we can hold on to ownership of it. And then, as the market does whatever, maybe we sell it down the road. Maybe after a year at the beach, we decide we want to go back, and we'd have that ability. But at that time, to even rent it out, because of the way the market was, a rental price on it was still going to be so high.
Rent would have probably been,
we said like $6,000.
Yeah, I was going to say $6,000 or $7,000 to rent it.
Yeah.
But
the downside is for me, or we talked about it, being in a completely different state from a house that's in our names that we're then renting out. You don't know that it's being taken care of correctly. You don't know what's going to happen there. And if they mess it up, that comes out of your money most of the time. And then what if they decide to be squatters at the end and not leave? Or
that's what a lot of people are experiencing now. Chris Igo actually had a real life scenario. So he's got insider intel in that situation of squatters on a contract. So go check out Chris Igo's video. But also, our property wasn't purchased for an investment property from that standpoint. And it just wasn't a great fit. So it's like, I want to make a rental car company in, a downtown urban area. Okay, well, what should we build our fleet out of? I don't know. Maybe we should build it out of, really extra, the Suburbans and the the ESV Escalades, like the biggest one.
The
Like,
ones that are really hard to park anywhere and hard to turn on those tight streets and all that stuff. It just doesn't make sense.
All right, let's build them out of motorcycles.
Okay, well, you've just cut your renters
Okay,
in
all right.
like third.
Let's use smaller, more compact cars, but let's use all manual transmissions. It's like, it just wasn't a good
Yeah.
fit, you know?
Yeah.
So if you're going to go into it, you need to go into it with the mindset of building it correctly, which is what these investors are doing. I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. But are rent prices really going up?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I mean, our apartment rent went up this year over last year.
All right, so that is weird because our apartment will, I think, continue to go up as you renew because they kind of know where they stand.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to switch apartments, switch complexes and sign a new lease somewhere else, then you'll get the new incentivized lower price.
That's true. It's just like with your Comcast and whatever, AT&T and T-Mobile, and whether it's your internet or your phone or your whatever, it's like, okay, well, I've been there for 12 months. We're going to cancel unless you want to give us the newbie
how much
price.
Could they offer you? Let's just say they offer you $400 off. Okay, cool. You see a savings of $400. Well, then you extrapolate that. That's $4,800 for the year. Cool. How much is it going to cost you to move?
Yeah, so there's that.
How much is it going to cost you to move? You can do it yourself. Okay, maybe that runs you $1,000 plus sweat equity. Okay, you save $3,800. But if you hire somebody, then you feel better about it every month, thinking that your rent's lower, but you really negated any savings because you spent it all up front in the relocation cost. So that's their game plan. But I'm okay with it, and you'll see why in just a moment. But we're going to experience more liquidation on top of something else happening, which is why rent prices are not going to go up. Not like they used to. As these investors start to dump their single family investments and liquidate, we are also seeing more purpose-built from the ground up multifamily living homes, shelter, options out there, townhomes for rent, duplexes, which will then continue to put downward pressure on rents. Because the rents were going up at a time where there was a shortage of housing and, there's a flow of money. Now that it's kind of caught up to itself, that demand just isn't there. So then when you add on top of it more options, more competition to choose from, then, like I said, the market's always right. You could demand whatever rent you wanted because you were the only one.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
And now there's high supply.
Yeah. Oh, well, you're too high? I'll just go down the street and take my pick of 4 other great options.
Yeah.
That would love to subsidize and give me some form of rent concession just for the fact that they're tired of carrying this $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month note on their own with no one in there.
Very true.
Currently, 48 out of 100 of the largest cities of America saw rents decline, and more than likely in a few months, that will probably be closer to 90 out of 100, coming in at a net negative. And also, we're going to see the remainder having a slowing of appreciation rates for rent prices.
I was thinking that out of a lot of places, Florida may be the one place where I was thinking rent prices could still continue to go up versus down because of what's happening with the homeowners insurance and things like that.
I think,
especially if it's added into your rent price.
We can't say Florida because Florida is, as we have discovered in the last few days, completely different.
Completely different.
Depending on what part of Florida you're in.
Turns out
I ain't got nothing against the people of Tampa, but I ain't never come back to Tampa.
I don't like Tampa.
I don't want to go to Tampa. I don't
want
to go to Ocala. I don't want to do it.
It was. I think the problem is we left Atlanta. I hated the traffic and it just felt like sardines all the time, like just too many people just crammed in. And so we moved here, Okaloosa County, where it does not feel like that. Even in the middle of tourist season, it still doesn't feel like that. It does not. And then you go into Tampa and it's back into that just stressful, angry driving, just, I couldn't do it. Like, I'm sure the area and the people are great. And I like the mall we went to, the hotels we stayed at were nice. The port was not whatever, but it's just way too many people.
My address and my driver's license say I live in Florida, but I don't consider this Florida.
Me either, weirdly.
I don't consider this Florida. But also now I understand why some people would say, hey, don't talk about here on your video.
Because then everybody's going to move here, and then you've turned it into the place you don't want it to be. Which even 20 years ago, when I would, like 30 years ago when I would come here, it did not look like this. I mean, this is Atlanta compared to what it was.
So there are people who are commenting on our videos on Squirrel Tribe Life, which is
where we show like everything.
It's travel, vlog, family, conversation. Don't get it twisted. Don't go over there looking for
news and stuff. Same thing I say about Squirrel Tribe 2.0. It's not the same. You got to let me have a little breathing space.
But the comments over there are saying, wow, we remember these areas that you guys are showing us and highlighting before 20 years ago.
Yeah. Like when you could drive through and see the ocean, but now you see the condos.
Now, we are going to see big risks for landlords and investors who are buying property for, an income property, because they're buying it with potentially inaccurate rental data that skews their ROI potential. I pulled up Air DNA the other day where she was laughing at me. She's like, that's not real.
It just sounds so dumb. Like Air DNA. Like, I don't know. Like you're getting somebody's DNA from like across the seas. Like what's happening? Air DNA.
But there are big risks. And we're seeing a lot of rental property, vacation rental property condos listed for sale. Okay.
A lot.
That is, in the last few weeks, huge influx during the summer, which is
not
strange.
Yes.
We also checked today for Zillow for rental options, whereas when we got here last year, there might have been two,
maybe three.
One house, maybe two condos. Now there's probably 30.
I was about to say there's probably that, and that's just in this little area. We didn't even look left or right.
We need
to look left.
Yeah, we need to do that.
I was thinking about that.
So, and the pricing is competitive. It's competitive
pricing.
It's like, yo, we can go rent this house
for cheaper than our apartment right now. And it's like, but then my brain goes, you can go rent this house for cheaper than this apartment. However, I have more faith in this apartment still being here next year versus somebody getting foreclosed on and then I'm homeless, or somebody deciding to sell and I have to at the last second find some new place. And then you try to move back into a place like this and you're like, remember when you left us? Good luck.
I think that with any rental situation, you got to have a year-to-year strategy.
Yeah.
And the strategy would be that if, for instance, even day one, you were, obviously you're going to do your due diligence, but if you were to experience some sort of issue, I would be tracking it to be ahead of any potential foreclosure notices. So we would have advance notice, and then by Florida state law, then you'd have a certain amount of time to vacate.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be a big deal. It would be a little bit of an inconvenience, but honestly, I'll tell you guys right now, I think it'd be a cool story.
I think it'd be a cool
story.
I mean,
whether it works out great or not terribly,
yes.
I think it would be a great story to share with you guys, which apparently you appreciate the fact that we just keep it real.
Yeah. I just thought of Chappelle when keeping it real goes wrong. Isn't that what it is? When they did they made fun of the.
They made fun of a lot.
What's that show from MTV?
Oh, no, well, that was the Real World. But
they made fun of Real World with Tyreek.
That was the Mad Real World.
Yes.
But they had another one when Keeping It Real goes right. They had two.
Okay, you're right. Okay, I like the Mad Real World because that's the one that had Tyreek,
man.
Right? I think that's the one. But anyway.
An ashtray.
Yes, an ashtray. That one was absolutely hilarious to me. But what I was going to say is here at the apartment, we had thought we'd be here for the year, and then we'd start looking at a house if we decided to stay. And we definitely decided to stay. We like it here. And so we started looking at houses, but then the apartment's like, hey, you have to renew 2.5, 3 months before your lease is even up in order to get a non-bend you over price on renewal. So it's like, well, crap, even if we had found something, you're kind of in this rock and a hard place. So we don't renew again for another 10 months, but we're looking now that way. I would much rather overlap a house and an apartment than try to pay the fee to break a lease on an apartment to go get in a house.
We could potentially see the beginning of the low point this fall.
Yeah.
Going into winter 2024. And if that is true, based on quite possibly the highest unemployment levels and the greatest decline in businesses and personal balance sheets at the hand of the Fed, we're going to be in a sweet spot.
Yeah.
We're going to be in a sweet spot. And then if it continues on to 2024, spring, summer is going to be such a, it's going to be a deep recession in the travel tourist area that we could literally, we could steal whatever we wanted.
So that's the thing. For us, it's actually really good. We've been paying attention to the pricing of apartments, of condos, of houses since before May of 2022. So we know, saw what it was at the height. We see where it is now. So we'll know exactly what the trend is, I guess you can say.
When we moved, I said the number was 1 to 2 million. But now, that was at the time.
That was at the time. If you wanted a nice house, a newer one that was modern, that didn't need a bunch of work or renovating.
But now, I think the number is 600 to 800.
That's what I was going to say.
Which is crazy.
Crazy.
But I think the number is going to be 600 to 800.
Well, that's like the house that we walked. I think it's on your channel. Maybe it's on SquirrelTribe Life. The house that we walked that at one point was listed for 1.4 and then was dropped down to 998 because they bought it for 6 something, put money into it to flip it. And I'm like, they're going to have to sell it to break even at the high 7s, low 8s. That's what it's worth. It's not worth anymore just because you want it to be.
And it was at one point worth it because the market
was there, but it's not there anymore.
Even then it wasn't, but the market
deemed
supported
that it was, yeah.
But right now. So, again, all of this is going to lead to an increase of squatter and eviction likelihood and potential, which investors and landlords should be paying attention to as a result of having to lower their prices and also lower their qualifications for applicants in order to get somebody in, because again, the market's always right, while also the market is putting people in a position where they don't earn all right, so if you need to earn 3 times to qualify, if you need to earn 3 times the rent rate, and 9 out of 10 applicants don't, well, what do you have to do? You either have to wait for that one perfect applicant, which then you have to fight for because they're prime and they can take their choice anywhere.
Or you lower your criteria.
You lower your rent rate. You lower your rent rate to match their income, being, a third of that, or
the criteria.
Change the criteria.
Where it's
my rent stays high, but you don't have to make 3 times. You can make 1.5 times.
But then that's where the issues start to come in, because then where you're moving into might not be up to the living standards that you would want for what you're paying, because the criteria has been dropped down to accommodate more people.
Yes. And then as an investor, it is no longer an attractive investment, and also increases the management headaches that will come with that.
Now, I don't know if you're going to talk about this, but I kind of want to touch on something that use the word later. You use the word investor, okay? But I want to put it out there that you and I could be an investor. We could own a $150,000 home as an investment so that we can make money, so we can sustain our family and also help somebody with a nice rental area, right? And that doesn't make us bad people just because we're investors. But if those people don't pay their rent, and as an investor, you have to ask them to move out.
It's not an ask, it's a contractual obligation.
You have to contractual obligation them to move out. People will look at the investor as the bad guy, not thinking about the fact the investor still has to pay those bills.
No, they won't.
The person getting moved out will. The people who feel like those people will.
People who have no skin in the game, who, don't have any aspiration of being in a position of an investor, sure, that's fine. That doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
Because
that was the thing during the whole, what was it called, where you could defer your payment?
Forbearance.
During the forbearance, it helped the renter. Well, it helped the landlords, but a lot of times they didn't even pass that on to the renter. So that was a whole different thing there.
The landlords were only allowed to receive forbearance on I think it was a government-backed mortgage on their primary residence. So
not even for ones that they were renting out. So, because I remember there's a lot of people who were, the renters turned into squatters, And the person who owned the property was like, you have to go. I still have to make my payments because you're not making your payments. I now am losing my home trying to pay for this home or whatever else.
Think about if you're retired and you went out and bought an investment property and it was $500,000 and you said, you know what? I don't want a mortgage. I'll pay cash. It's going to produce $200 to $2,500 a month in, residual passive income. Great. This is going to help me in my retirement. Boom. COVID hits. You don't get a forbearance. Why? Because you don't have a mortgage.
You pay
so
it.
now the renter doesn't have to pay. So now you don't get the money every month.
But you still have to pay the property taxes.
But you still have to live.
Yeah, and that. It's a lot.
Now, the other thing is that these rental comps that people are basing these investments off of don't include the rent concessions being made by others, their competitors. Rent concessions can be good for renters, though, but they don't often get advertised. So these concessions are discounts on down payments. Or, for instance, when we signed up here, we got a free application and something else.
Yeah. So I guess like a concession would be that the owner pays for the yard or the
it could be anything,
or any
right?
kind of stuff.
And so what will skew the data for investors is they'll say, and this may work out for people trying to sell their investment properties because they'll say, well, the market commands $3,500 a month in rent income or rent prices. Great, cool. So you base the purchase off of, the cap rate that you would get off of that. Cool. But yeah, I mean, we have rent concessions that basically bring the rent down to $2,900, but we can still list it at $35.
Yeah.
So then as an investor, you're going in thinking, well, I've got margin in here to make $400 a month, not realizing that there's a $600 a month concession. So now you're in the whole negative $200 a month.
Hey, that's what happens with franchises too.
The franchises usually just lie.
Yes.
They usually just lie and cheat and steal and deceive. But
so be careful.
That sounds like a topic for a whole nother video.
Yeah. I know. I'm sorry.
Because they prey on investors. They prey on investors. It's like you have to have a certain level of net worth and credit and this, that, and the other. You're super qualified, and then but you don't have to have any business experience depending on the franchise.
Yeah.
Now Chick-fil-A, completely
Totally
different story. You can't actually own a Chick-fil-A franchise if you've never had a restaurant before or something like that. So anyway, let's stick to the risks for the renters and. Owners and investors and landlords are going broke. I watched a video yesterday. Nurses that seemingly make high levels of income are going broke. This recession shows no favoritism and takes no prisoners.
The pandemic showed favoritism, and then as soon as it was over, it said it crapped on those same ones they were showing favoritism to. I'm just saying, nurses.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the beginning, because in the beginning, if you were black or a kid, you were safe. It
didn't affect black people, and then suddenly it only affected black people for a minute. I don't even know how that went.
Yeah, until they were like, no, we need a black person to say they got it. Who's the basketball player? Was it the basketball player?
I think it was the basketball player said he got it.
The first one that said they got it?
Yeah.
So, but either way, landlords, these investors are going bankrupt and being foreclosed on the mortgages that they're missing payments on after maybe even experiencing a job loss from all the layoffs and terminations that are going on. Or just a variety of other factors compounded that just make it impossible for them to keep up. So no different than the huge hotel chain that is going bankrupt on $750 million.
Was that Hilton?
750 million. Yeah.
It was Hilton, right?
750 million. They're going bankrupt. We can't do it anymore. No exception. Okay. This can and will happen. So this could be a risk for renters, as you said, and you're living somewhere, you're paying rent, and then eventually you get an eviction notice, not by your landlord, but by the bank that has now taken ownership of the property. Yep. So it's going to be really, really important that you stay on top of that, on top of them. Okay. Lots of people are, because of these reasons, pumping the brakes on moving.
I was going to say, I feel like this is why you see so many apartments going up in so many places, in rental townhome communities, rental housing communities, where you can't own them because then it's too easy for somebody not to make their payments and for a house to get foreclosed on. Well, and I think there's more red tape with owning a house and having to be evicted than there is in being in an apartment complex, possibly, and being evicted.
Well, I think the beauty of the apartment complexes typically is they will fall under the category like those hotel chains, like the banks that have failed, Silicon Valley Bank, SVB, First Republic, Signature. They'll fall under that same umbrella, right? So what will happen is if a homeowner or even a private investor defaults on their mortgage, the bank is going to take the property. They're going to take the asset, and then they're going to sell it. But they have really no contractual obligation to the tenant. Whereas the banks, they fail, they go under, they get seized by the Fed, by FDIC, by the Treasury. They get sold, and then the new ownership takes over, and then everything kind of goes on. The name on the front may change, your account number may be modified.
Under new management.
But yeah, so then with like apartment complexes, similar situation. Because, I mean, the bank, really, they're not super incentivized to kick everybody out and then sell an empty apartment complex that is of little value.
I was about to say, there's only so much you can do with an apartment
There's
complex
more
versus
value
a house.
when you can sell this at a discount to a new owner because it is cash flow producing.
Yeah.
But a lot of all of these things, plus more, are putting people in a position to kind of pump the brakes on moving, also because of their jobs and whether or not they will have to go back into the office. And like Facebook just required a in-office 3-day work week after being a strong proponent of work from home, the work from home mentality, the work from home push, right?
You gonna tell me that Facebook won't let you meta work?
Well, yeah, put your VR.
Yeah.
Your
I'm in the office. Just give me the office visual.
Apple Vision Pro. People are going to start going to work in Apple Vision Pros, but they only work for 2 hours because that's how long the battery lasts.
But it'd be a lot easier to dress nice because you can afford better clothing that way, and you just sitting there in your pajamas on your couch at home.
You really need to watch the Apple Vision Pro video from MKBHD. You need to watch that.
Okay, I was just thinking of Ready Player One, that movie. It's okay. That's what I
You
figured.
really need to watch it.
Okay.
Once they get the gloves and the suit, game over.
I assumed.
And that's what Marquez Brownlee said that they were missing, basically. But some people have chosen to live in a certain area because all they needed was a strong internet connection to work from home. But then it's like, well, I don't want to move somewhere and then have this crazy commute because I got to go back to work.
Well, you have to think some people probably accepted jobs over the last year because they were online only, and now they're going to say, hey, you have to come into the office. Well, I live in California, your office is in New York. How do you expect this to work?
Well, Walmart did it too. And they said everybody's got to come back to the office. They had 3 corporate offices, I believe.
The only person I know that does that.
They had 3 corporate offices, I believe. And they were shutting down 1, so they were consolidating the 2. So some people were already going to lose their job. But the simple fact of the matter is everybody's got to go back.
Yeah.
And your choice was to relocate or commute, come back, or don't work here anymore.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we should expect to see a demographic shift and more investors in single family home real estate beginning to liquidate. Because
Where
the
are they
single
going?
family homes are dropping in rent prices. Some of the values of these properties are going down while the tenants who are occupying them are potentially at risk with their income. So investors are beginning to dump single family.
I wonder where they're going to move their investments to.
Multifamily and more than likely stocks. They're going back into stocks.
Yeah.
This is going to drive fears of uncertainty on uncertain returns from rental property investments because of the demographic change and market shifts. So let me add to that, besides the single family, some of these vacation properties, as we're already seeing that shift. And this does not mean don't buy anything if you're in the market like we are. But I think it does mean be careful.
Do your homework.
Be careful.
Yeah.
You know? Now, one of the people screaming the loudest is Barry Sternlicht. And I got to say, I would be very careful what you listen to and what he or anyone else has to say and potentially their hidden agenda. Now, I'm not going to run the B-roll clip on this, but he was the one screaming, almost literally screaming about the Fed's moves and the damage that the recession was going to cause and how bad things were going to get. Now, this is a multi-billionaire investor here. Only to now say he admits he was a little early with his recession calls. And as the billionaire of a large real estate investment corporation CEO, he says, and I quote, "I did not understand the strength of the consumer."
How'd he get to where he is then?
I did not understand the strength of the consumer. That is troubling if that is a true statement. But honestly, what was his push? What was his agenda behind these claims that he was making months ago to ultimately get to where he is today? This is chess, not checkers, okay? Yeah. The move that they just made is a move that is going to happen 4 or 5 moves ahead. Like, pay attention, analyze your risk, and analyze and understand your risk tolerance. Because if you get in at the wrong time, at the riskiest point, then it could potentially wipe you out financially. And if anyone tells you we still have a supply shortage in terms of homes and real estate, then I want to go ahead and say that that's a complete lie. The only shortage that we have is in affordable homes, and affordable property, and affordable real estate. And we have a shortage of bad debt. We have a shortage of cancellation. We have a shortage of bankruptcy, and soon to be foreclosure shortage and eviction shortage that will then eventually show itself and help bring back a boost in supply and balance out the market's equilibrium. Honestly, I thought by now we would see more foreclosures and more properties hitting the market at a lower price point offered up by these banks. That's what we have a shortage of.
I would say I bet we will soon, but you know that these condos themselves that have these units in them that will go under foreclosure don't want anything listed as a foreclosure in their building. So they're probably going to be trying real hard to help them sell or get somebody in there or something first.
Quite possibly, but I do see plenty of inventory for sale.
There's plenty for sale. It's just not always what people want. I think
it's not what they can afford.
It's not what they can afford, and it's not where they want to look. So people have a tunnel vision. I want to be right in this place with this much money. Oh, there's nothing. We have a supply issue. No, look right here. Raise your price just a smidge, or lower your something.
Increase your budget.
Yeah.
Or choose a lower.
Yeah.
But the lower ranges are, disappearing, but I think they're going to come back.
Yeah.
However, we've got a ton of sideline investors with cash who are waiting and will act fast and very quickly for what's about to happen. So the window of opportunity, like we can look back on and see from 2008, will not be open for long, in my opinion, this time. This time, because back then it was like, oh, wow, look at the opportunity. And you had time to go and, take your pick of foreclosures or short sales or whatever. This time, they already know what they want. They've already got their eyes on it. And quite possibly,
the numbers.
A lot of these aren't even going to hit the market. They're not even going to hit the market. Like, they're going to be off-market sales.
I was just thinking about the very first house you and I bought when we moved out of our apartment. The very first house we bought. We had so many in our price range that we could go look at. We outlined a little area. Yeah. We were willing to drive this far, this far, but there were so many to choose from in that price range. That same price range today, I don't think it exists anymore.
No, absolutely not. But with that being said, next week, we're going to do it again.
Yes, I'm super excited.
We're going to do it again. We're going back to Atlanta next week.
Yeah.
And we got some cool things lined up for you guys to show you, bring you along with us, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited.
But these are just more reasons and further proof that solidifies our position and decision to stay put and just continue to wait for now. Not to mention when you add on the other factors hitting homeowners right now in Florida, particularly, specifically, I'm thrilled to be giving my money away in rent every month right now.
To this apartment complex.
I am. In comparison to being hit with a $50,000 or $100,000 assessment.
No.
Can you imagine if we would have just bought a condo? just bought one.
Yes.
And then they go, yeah, we're going to need $100,000.
Yeah, by the way. And then plus your HOA fees are now $2,000 a month. And it's like, are you for what? For the tourists to come and use the pool? Like, I don't understand.
So with that being said, we're not getting a condo.
No, we're definitely not getting a condo. We've already decided.
It ain't never gonna
after
happen.
being here long enough and seeing how things go, we'll rent one when we go places on vacation. I'd still rather have a house if possible, if you can find a good price, but we'll do a condo if necessary. But owning one here as a main form of living, hard pass.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, you got two things you need to be concerned about with these condos moving forward. One, how expensive they're gonna be to rent. Mm-hmm. And two, what type of maintenance and repair they have had or have postponed.
That's what I was going to say, the postponing. Because the postponing is why the one in, was it Miami, collapsed. Because they were told to do these things and they kept postponing and postponing.
I'm just saying.
And then there you go, and imminent death.
Now, you know, what we've got going on here, some people say you guys are stupid to rent. You don't know it. It's fine.
That's fine.
To each their own.
Exactly.
But it keeps us constant and limits the variables and almost infinite downside of ownership, maintenance costs, assessments, reserves, and other expenses that are hitting a lot of people very hard right now and driving them out of areas and neighborhoods that they once could afford but can no longer.
Yep.
Waiting on clarity. Clarity from the Fed, clarity from the market. The market's always right, from a lot of different inputs and sources that we're keeping an eye on. But again, as I said, every location is different. Now, I want to look at some of these slides that I have, and we're going to run through these pretty quickly because I don't want this video to be 2 days long.
We're at a day and a half.
Bankrate says that the cost of living is the total amount of money required to live in a certain area and cover your basic necessities. Expenses typically factored into cost of living calculations include housing, food, and taxes. It may also include such expenses as transportation, healthcare, entertainment, and education.
Because they don't consider a lot of that as a necessity. Food and housing is the necessity.
Now, what's going to be interesting here is this cost of living comparison calculator, which if anybody wants to go over this, go through this on Patreon, I'd be more than happy to. I'm not doing any editing on this video, so you're just going to hear what I have to tell you. But if you want to see it firsthand and run the numbers for where you are, or maybe where you're considering to go, by all means. But I threw in Fort Myers, Cape Coral, Florida, and if you lived in Fort Myers, Southwest Florida, and you were thinking about moving to Atlanta, and your current income was $100,000, which I know $100,000 in Fort Myers is low, okay? Just easy numbers here. That would result in only having to make $93,542 in Atlanta, based on this calculator here. Interestingly enough, these are some of the price differences, though. So Atlanta actually saw an increase in their price of eggs. Parmesan cheese. I didn't know that was such a really like an important, metric here.
I put it in your dinner last night.
I know, but I don't.
It spiced it up.
You know what? Everything looks good. We really like the house. We like the neighborhood.
What is the cost
good schools?
of Parmesan cheese in this area?
But how much is Parmesan cheese?
Yeah, because that's the deciding factor here. Well, it depends. You going to Publix or Kroger? Or Walmart?
Potatoes.
Potatoes.
Well, if it's Atlanta, it could be Kroger. Kroger's.
Kroger's, according to your mother.
Potatoes or potato. It's not potatoes. Those cost more. Coffee costs more in Atlanta. Sorry.
I knew that. I used to buy the groceries.
Obviously peaches. Peaches cost more in Atlanta.
You think they'd be cheaper because that's where they come from. Justin Bieber gets his peaches down in Georgia. I'm just saying.
But the housing cost, though, in Atlanta is lower. Apartment rent is lower. Home prices are lower. In comparison, Fort Myers, you'd see an apartment at $1,852 a month, and at Atlanta, Georgia, $1,562. Yes, I hear you. Where are you finding an apartment for $1,852 in Fort Myers?
But okay.
What you got?
What I was going to say is, you add it all up in this hand for Fort Myers, you add it all up in this hand for Atlanta, you're probably going to be pretty close to each other, but your mind goes, oh, food is so much more expensive here. I don't want to be there. Well, it's cheaper over here, but your rent is way higher over here. So it's like, which one matters the most to you?
Or do you look at it from the standpoint of, well, when it's time to vacation, I'm already in Florida.
That's how I feel about it.
Utility costs are lower, according to Bankrate. in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Transportation costs are lower. Healthcare, it's kind of like a mixed bag. Optometrists are more expensive in Atlanta, but doctors, dentists, and prescription drug prices are...
prescription drugs.
No, doctors and prescription drugs are cheaper, but dentists are more expensive in Atlanta. So miscellaneous costs, key staples
Most
here.
random thing.
Key staples here
This does make sense.
that are making people make choices on where they want to live. The price of tennis balls and wine. I did highlight wine for you because I think champagne falls into the wine category.
Does. But
you can't have Monday Mimosa without the champagne.
No. You know how many golf courses and that's golf balls, obviously, but you know how many tennis courts are in all of those hoity-toity neighborhoods?
Alta.
Yeah.
Alta. But again, the necessary versus discretionary spending, cost of living index. The necessary spending is the money used to cover basic or essential needs such as housing and food. Necessary expenses are living costs that cannot be avoided.
Yes. So, but a lot of people have a tendency to think discretionary spending is necessary spending.
And that is the what I was talking about earlier about the poor financial education and avoiding temptation. The temptation is what drives you to spend on non-essentials.
Yep.
So let's just compare. So we got Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida. If you made $100,000 and you wanted to move to, let's just say, Boise, Idaho, which I don't know why you would want to do that.
I really like potatoes.
Although we had someone here that we liked, Mackenzie, she said she was going to move to Idaho. Why? Her boyfriend or fiance.
Got some stuff on. What you doing over there?
It's on the tip of my tongue.
That's such a dad joke.
It's actually from Seinfeld. But if anybody knows which episode of Seinfeld that was, comment down below. Crazy Joe Davola. But if you wanted to move from Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida to Idaho, she was moving because her fiance was being, his post was being moved.
Yeah.
From, he's going to be stationed there.
Yeah.
And she was just along for the ride.
Yeah, that's how it works.
But it got delayed, and then she ended up going to Arizona. I was like...
She was like, thankful. Glad.
I mean, I wouldn't choose either one, but I'd take Arizona over Idaho, probably.
I don't know. It depends on... I don't know. We haven't been to Idaho.
Let's just say, another movie quote. You're moving to Moscow. You're gonna want to bring a coat. So you would only need to make $98,985 to go to Idaho.
You said only, but that is $6,000 more than to go to Atlanta.
But it's still less than you would need to make in
Cape Coral,
Fort Myers. But again, if you want to factor in the relocation costs, then how long would it take you to actually break even on that?
I was going to say, I wonder if Boise, Idaho costs more because there's less people in it, so they have to charge more for everything to offset. Whereas Atlanta, there's a shit ton of people in Atlanta, so they don't have to charge as much. Therefore,
no, you're right.
Whatever.
But more than likely, the bigger question that everybody wants to know is, what is the price of potatoes? And more importantly, what is the price of Parmesan cheese? That's what I want to know. If you want to go from Fort Myers to feeling poor, then move to LA.
Yeah, I mean, there's more feelings than just poor in
Los
LA.
Angeles and Long Beach, California, $138,745. The cost of living is 38.75% higher in LA than it is in Fort Myers.
Just because it's LA.
San Francisco.
Ew.
You can read that one.
Ew.
San Francisco. San Francisco with some of the highest homeless... The place that has a poop map so you can find fecal matter or dodge fecal matter.
I was so disappointed in San Francisco. I was so excited to go there, and I was so disappointed.
If you made $100,000 in Fort Myers and you wanted to go to San Francisco, you'd have to make...
$162,823. That's a 62.82% higher. 62.8. Yeah, That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's stupid. Why would you want to do that?
Why would you want to go to a place that...
And if you live in San Francisco, why are you still there?
Why? Go to Boise.
Go anywhere.
Go anywhere.
Go to LA.
It's still cheaper.
But they do get better as we go to Queens, New York, which is where I'm from. And I took you there that one time.
It's great.
And went to
I like
Rochdale.
Jamaica Avenue.
And Jamaica Avenue, had a lot of fun.
Rode the bus, terrifying.
you'd need to make roughly 130,000. But
this makes perfect sense to me. No offense, just heads up, no offense, but this makes perfect sense.
Go to Birmingham, Alabama.
85,000. We drove to Birmingham, and I was like,
$85K. So there you have it. But ultimately, the cost of living is going to be a struggle moving forward, more so than it has ever been in the past for so many different reasons. And the Wall Street Journal says, forget the cost of living. What's the cost of thriving in America? Because again, as we discussed before, there's so many people out there now who have side hustles and multiple income streams just to get by.
You got to think about it. If Cape Coral decided to move to Birmingham, they're technically thriving at that point because they're 15,000 over the cost of living.
So to answer that question, you could if you could maintain your income,
you could thrive in a lower.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you had a job that was still paying the same, or it was a remote online job that didn't matter where you were, then you could immediately thrive like almost overnight.
And that's why people keep leaving the country and going to places like Cozumel and other places like that.
Lower cost of living.
Which makes you feel like the king because you're thriving, because you have plenty of money to do all these things.
That was like the video I put up yesterday about moving to Belize.
That's true.
The supposedly booming economy can be at odds with what many people experience in the U.S. Supposedly. Depends on who you are, who you ask. Nearly every statistic says Americans are richer than they were a generation ago. Yet this seems wrong to many people who feel the American dream slipping out of reach.
Well, that's one of those dumb comments. You're richer than they were a decade ago. Well, everybody's getting paid more than they were a decade ago. So technically, yes, you're making more, but your cost of living is freaking through the roof. So no.
Yeah. It's like, what's the minimum wage in San Francisco? Oh, it's $25. You know,
what's a loaf of bread? $24.99.
What's the starting wage? You know, it's like, yeah, but it's 63% more expensive to live here than it is
anywhere else. So,
you know,
but your pay is only 12% higher than other states.
The cost of living is driving 1 in 4 workers globally to look for new jobs.
Globally.
Money is tighter for employed people in 2023 than a year ago. And this is globally. Yes, correct. The rising cost of living is causing employed people to look for either higher pay with a new job or take on additional jobs. The survey showed that 26% of the global workforce is looking to change jobs in the next year, up from 19% in 2022, which is a survey snapshot of nearly 54,000 workers in 46 countries and territories.
I wonder when they do it of entrepreneurs. When they do this kind of survey.
That's a good question. Because those are more than likely the ones that are going to be living in lower cost of living areas and taking advantage of technology and working online and working remote.
Yep.
Financial hardship is more widespread worldwide in 2023 than it was last year, 2022. More employed people are working just to pay the bills and are unable to save their earnings for retirement, holidays, or other vacation or other experiences essential to maintaining a healthy and balanced lifestyle. Because, I mean, I don't want to only work.
Yeah.
I want to live, you know?
Yeah.
And this group of workers with little to no savings increased from 37% in 2022 to 42% in 2023. No savings, no safety net.
Yeah, but I have a question. Because your cost of living is subject to your wants and needs. Like, you need a place to live, but do you need a $10,000 a month place to live when you could easily be in a $2,500 and it still meet all criteria?
No, you're absolutely right. However, for some that may live in an area that is $1,500 a month rent, lower income, lower, cost, more than likely by necessity rather than choice. You probably don't make enough to live in a $10,000 a month and you choose to live in a $1,500 a month area unless you're just extremely frugal, right? So those who live there because they have to, when they see any marginal and incremental increase, it is huge.
That's different though, in my opinion, than a lot of people who are probably out there complaining about the cost of living, but they're the same ones who are living beyond their means because they want to keep up with the Joneses or they want to have everything. And that is the American dream, to have everything. But sometimes you got to work towards that dream instead of just jump right into it. Yeah.
Meanwhile, the percentage of workers who can afford to save shrunk to 38% from 47%. So we saw a 9% decrease in the amount of people who are able to actually work, earn money, and save. So literally they're working to pay bills. More households with employed people around the world are struggling to pay all or some of their bills every month. Some, not all. Literally saying like every month bills go unpaid.
Yeah.
Up to 14% from 10% last year. Further, 4% of people surveyed who are employed cannot pay their bills most of the time, which has doubled since last year. Combined, that is 18% of those surveyed who are either struggling or cannot pay their bills, even though they are employed around the world. Like, this is not just here in the United States. Workers most likely to change employers or work more jobs to get by. And it said that they are most likely to change employers, and they include those who feel overworked, struggle to pay the bills every month, and Gen Z. So you got to think, it's like if you're like maxed out, giving 110, 120%, and you still can't pay, like something's got to give.
Yeah.
The survey cites purpose, company culture, and inclusion as key elements to retain employees. And about half of those surveys said that they cannot truly be themselves in their current workplace. And as I told you guys before, there's going to be a shift. There was going to be a change. These employers are going to regain control, and they're no longer going to allow you to have purpose. Their culture is going to be theirs, not yours.
Yeah.
And there will be no inclusion. You will either do what they tell you to do, or you will not
have a job.
You will not work there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, they are regaining control, okay? 1 in 5 workers now work multiple jobs, with 69% doing so because they need additional income. The share of workers with multiple jobs is also higher among Gen Z and ethnic minorities, making up 30% and 28%, respectively, of the workers with multiple jobs. And secondary jobs are mostly part-time. The gig work, the Uber, the rideshare, the food delivery, just to kind of like bring in a little extra money. While some are still battling this cost of living crisis in a low income status and forced to skip meals. Now, as I told you guys earlier in the video, we got some ways here to beat the cost of living. And these include, and are not limited to, DIY and TikTok and thrifting and, you know, social media content creation that I talk to you guys about all the time, investing for beginners, you know the spiel. I didn't want this to come across as like an advertisement or a commercial.
I lost my slipper.
Although I did watch a video today that tried to deliver this information, but really it was more of, I want to promote my products and my courses and my memberships. So let me do that and figure out how I can sprinkle in some of these data points here and there. Look, if you guys want to join, links are below. If not, don't.
Pretty simple. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
pretty simple.
There is free content on Patreon, so go check it out. There's free posts you can see without joining. You can join at pretty much any price point if you want to.
And you can cancel at any time.
Right.
Also.
And so some people say, well, I can't afford it. Well, that means you've built this wall up because you haven't even gone to look, because there's free stuff on there.
Yeah.
So anyway, everybody's going to have their own opinion. That's fine. Whatever. But number 1 is rejecting the own everything mentality, which is, you will own nothing and be happy. But in a twist that would make the Black Mirror writers proud, Gen Z has flipped the script on ownership. They've traded own everything for share something. And just like trading a DVD collection for a Netflix account, they're reaping the benefits from rented dresses to borrowable cars. And it's less about possession and more about access.
Which I personally think is genius.
We're doing it right now.
I was about to say.
We're renting an apartment.
We're renting an apartment.
I don't think we're Gen Z, but, I think we're closer to millennial. At least I would be, because I'm younger. But Gen Z treats platforms like Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace as their own virtual Saturday flea markets, and their use of these secondhand markets isn't just about saving a buck, but a conscious nod towards sustainability, community building, and a rejection of being materialistic. With that being said, I do remember that this article kind of starts going this direction of marketing, so I'll point that out when we get there if you haven't already identified it. But also we got to think about what path is this going to put us on in the future with a new generation coming up with the conscious thought process behind own nothing.
Well, we have a teenager, and so far she's not of that mindset of own nothing. She wants like all the rings and the necklaces and the shoes and the clothes.
Because, I mean, we could really expect to see a huge pivotal change in the next 10, 20, 30 years if this mentality, almost, the polar opposite of what capitalism really is, kind of takes hold here.
We got to think about it. It's inflation's fault. It's our economy's fault that this is the way people are thinking, because it's too expensive to afford these things. So it makes more sense to group own something than it does for every individual to own it. It's because of what our economy has done to us. So is that their goal? Is that the goal in the end?
Look, it's all smoke and mirrors, right? You got to believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. And then you got to realize, like, what is their motive? Like I told you with Barry Sternlicht, what is the motive behind what they tell you, what they allow you to see, what they want you to think, what they want you to think, which is why schools teach kids what to think and not how to think.
Yes.
That's a problem. Number 2, influencing with authenticity. As Gen Z's social media isn't about showcasing unattainable luxury, but rather about real life, which we kind of fall into that category because this is real life, folks. Gone are the days of flexing Lamborghinis and supermodels.
No, it's not. It's still there.
A great example is TikTok. Well, they moved on to
people.
They moved on to private jets and more expensive.
But this one's about promoting a person.
So yes, here we go into this marketing of this article, and we'll just skip over that.
Yeah, because
we've got another influencer who's
rocks thrift store finds and home cooked meals. Oh wow, living a normal life as opposed, like literally, she's popular for wearing non-name brand clothes and cooking at home. Are you serious?
No, like she's doing a good thing by getting people on board to want to spend less money and be less flashy or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's really for her own personal gain.
Yeah.
Because you're going to then make purchases and decisions based on and or through her. Okay.
Well, so she's making money by telling y'all not to spend money.
But I think that the other thing is that a lot of people, if they ever come across these, they don't really realize what's happening.
Yeah.
They're still being sold. They're still being targets. They're still being tempted to make purchases rather than, instead of designer labels and thrift store finds and home, just don't buy them. Just don't buy them.
Yeah.
But it says that this is a new normal, and it's both cost effective and sustainable. It's like swapping the glossy magazine for a well-loved novel that's authentic and relatable.
Say that to the kid who gets all the hand-me-downs from their brother or sister above them. They don't think it's, great. That they're basically doing that. They are the thrift store and the home-cooked meals because they get the leftovers from whoever's food and they get the brother or sister's pants and shoes and jackets, and they're like, what the crap is this?
Unless it's like cool stuff.
Unless it's cool stuff.
But probably not. Meanwhile, number 3 is an empowering through financial literacy, which is really important, as I told you guys about, that curbing that temptation. Gen Z isn't waiting around for their Hogwarts letter for finance education. They're hitting up TikTok instead and following finance influencers like blank and blank to build their knowledge.
Blank and blank.
Making the world of finance as easy to grasp as their morning latte. Like,
say blank and blank paid them for this. But
I'm not going to share who they are because I haven't vetted them.
Yeah,
so.
they could be sucking. It could be a pyramid scheme on their channel.
I come across these things and it like really bugs me, and I'm actually going to do a video probably tomorrow on Patreon of one that I found. I'm gonna do a full reaction. It's a 30-minute video. And I'm gonna point out everything they said that's right. I'm gonna point out everything that they said that's wrong. I'm gonna try to provide some clarity to it as it relates to growing YouTube channels, because it's about someone who made a video that says, I grew a channel to 100,000 subscribers in 3 months, which is cool. It's possible, it's doable. But I think that it requires some clarification from people who actually do it.
Yeah.
And not from the person who's reading the script on the video that they created that is ultimately designed
to sell you something.
So with fintech apps like blank, blank, and blank, Gen Z is learning the ropes of investing from their smartphones, which you guys can do too. And you don't need to use these apps that I've never heard of.
Yeah.
I would prefer to use something that has a proven track record. And it's a practical and proactive approach to money that arms them with knowledge on the cost of living battlefield, which I've always told you guys, be more educated, be better informed, be more knowledgeable. Be the smartest one in the room. I've never said that before, but literally, be the smartest one in the room. Or I'm sorry,
Don't be.
Never be the smartest one in the
Yeah.
room. And if you are, get out of that room. But you should be working towards switching rooms.
I was about to say, that's the whole plan, is to get into the one where you're not the smartest and learn to where you are on the same level or higher, and then go, oh, time to go up.
Yeah.
That's, I mean,
Your circle, your sphere is going to be very important moving forward, especially if you're struggling right now, you don't want to be, or if you're thriving and doing well and you want to continue to. So that's going to be really important.
Yeah.
Investing in mental wealth, Gen
basically
Z.
mental health.
Mental health, mental wealth. Gen Z knows that wealth isn't just about the number of dollars in your bank account. It's also about their mental health. A clear mind boosts productivity and overall well-being, and a clear direction helps to make more money in the long term. I think we align with Gen Zs and millennials and boomers.
with that part.
I think we align with like
everybody.
everybody. And it's not all one size fits all.
I agree. But the whole mental health is important to me. That's, I mean, in my opinion, that's why we are where we are, because it's just mentally less draining here, in my opinion, than it is in the tight hustle bustle, just stressed out corporate everything. It's just, I would rather have mental health than a ton of money any day. But when you can find ways to work on both.
I mean, who was it? Was it Kate Spade?
Yes.
She had a lot of money.
But in the end, it wasn't. She didn't have the mental health and took her life.
By tapping into resources like blah, 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 whatever. This innovative generation provides that wealth is more than just financial security. They understand that work-life balance sometimes beats a higher salary. The secret is Gen Z is doing much more than cutting costs. They're flipping the system, going against norms, and building a future where the cost of living doesn't mean sacrificing their quality of life. And if you want to know more, if you want to engage in further conversation and discussion, then by all means, you know where to find us down below. If you've made it this far in the video, we really do appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on alerts and notifications, because apparently YouTube's been turning them off without viewers' consent. And until next time, make sure you go watch SquirrelTribe's video. If you want to see other videos that kind of give a better glimpse into who we are besides just this, those are linked down below too. And we'll see you real soon.